Hello, my fine friends. Welcome back to Destination Discourse. I am your host, Stuart Butler, joined today with the real man of destination marketing, Adam Stoker. How are you?
The real man of destination marketing. I couldn't be better. Getting a compliment from you to start the show. I don't even know what to do with it.
Well, the only reason I did it, Adam, was I didn't want you to feel left out because our guests today are the real women of vacation
Ah.
rentals, Alex and Annie from the Alex and Annie podcast. Guys, how are you? I'm excited to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having us. And it's
Yeah.
funny when we launched our show, we had so many men that came to us and they're like, we want to launch our own show. We'll be the real men of vacation rentals. So we're just going to spread that around to you guys to get it started
Well,
with
you obviously
us.
told them, well, you can't be the real man because Adam is the only real man that
Right.
exists in the
Ah.
tourism space.
Adam, this is a love fest for you today, apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is new. This is new.
This is
I don't
new.
know.
I don't know how to
Something
take
tells
it.
me and Stuart are getting ready to go. We're actually going to do Destination Discourse live on stage at Marcom Summit, and we're flying out to Snowmageddon in Cleveland tomorrow.
Ooh.
I'm flying tomorrow. I
Mm.
think Stuart's going out on Wednesday. He must be about to ask me for something. That's the only thing I can think of why he's saying such. He arranged dinner with me one of the nights while we're there,
Contract
and
negotiations,
yep, I'm
I got
starting
to
to
butter you
realize
up.
there's something coming when the record
Uh-oh.
Well,
button's off.
sit tight. I
Mm.
won't be nice to you the rest of the episode. It's going to be
Oh.
fine. Um, it's been a little while since we recorded an episode, Adam. So, I just thought it'd be nice to start with before I put the zingers in. But let's we're going to get right into the show. We're going to talk about some really cool things related to vacation rentals. I can't think of anyone that knows vacation rentals in this space better than you guys, but you also both know DMOs really well. I know Annie, you've worked with the PCB DMO. Alex, you've been a former chair of ad DMO here in Myrtle Beach, so I can't wait to get into that relationship. We actually did a whole episode on your show, the Alex Nanny podcast, talking about this from your perspective, right? And then we're going to talk about from the DMO perspective today. So it's going to be fun, and everyone that's listening to this, go listen to that episode and listen to any Alex Nanny chat along on their podcast because it's great. If you want to learn about vacation rentals, there's not a better podcast out there. But before we get into that, this is going to be a treat for you guys. This is the one, the only Stu's News.
Gonna tell you what you need. It's Stu's News.
Oh yeah, I've missed it. I've definitely missed it.
It's a stellar cruise.
They're both dancing. Look at that.
Oh yeah,
Always something new.
They're gonna party.
yep.
Stu's News.
It's a banger. This song is a banger.
Banger.
It is a banger. Are you gonna wear that shirt this week, Adam, on stage?
Maybe I will.
You should. You absolutely should.
All
Um,
my expectations and more.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say.
Alex, you and I have known each other for a long time, but before we really got to know each other well, you listened to my previous podcast, the Fuel Hotel Marketing podcast, and we had a jingle on that called the Newsaroos. And Pete, who was one of our co-hosts, he used to sing it. And I remember you calling me or texting me one day saying, "Hey, I bumped into Pete in the restaurant. I think it was Soho, it was a sushi restaurant. And you asked him to sing the jingle live. So I think it's only fitting that you ask next time you see Adam, you ask Adam to sing the jingle live for
Oh,
you."
that's good. Yeah, I will definitely do that. And sometimes you'll have patrons around you and they might not know exactly what it is you're singing, but in Pete's case, everyone loved it. I mean, they didn't know there was going to be live entertainment that night, so it ended up working out great for everybody.
That's great. Hey, is everyone else did Alex's volume drop for you guys
Yeah.
too?
Yeah. I was about to text
Okay.
her. Yeah. It sounds like your mic went off, Alex.
Yeah. I could just
Is
about
that
make
is
it
that
out, but it
better?
was
Yeah. Much
yeah, there you
better.
go.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Do
Perfect.
you want to say that part or that?
No, if you want to restate it, I'm not going to edit because it's too much work. But if you want to say it again,
Oh,
that'd be
no. Never mind.
I'm not going to do anything with it.
Okay.
Nobody
All
can
right.
hear you, Alex. That's all that matters.
There
It's
you
fine.
go. If we can do the same to Adam, so we don't have to hear him, that would be great.
There it
So
is.
Uh,
There it
I'm
is.
back to
there's
normal,
the
right, Adam?
love.
Yeah,
There's the
he's
love.
back.
There you go. So today's Stu's News is about Chrome. So Google obviously has the browser Chrome. It's the most used browser on the internet and certainly on desktop devices. And they just announced this past week that they are coming out with an agentic plugin, or it's actually built right into the browser. So you're not going to have to go to a separate browser like, ChatGPT or OpenAI came out with Atlas last year. And there are some other agentic browsers out there, but this is the first one that's going to be built right into the mainstream browser. And I received an email. I log into Chrome so I can use the same tabs and have my bookmarks on any device that I log into. And I actually got an email from Google announcing this. And what was really fascinating to me is they gave examples of things you can do with an agent browser. And the first example they gave was book your travel. Right. So
Oh,
I think this is a pivotal moment. And we've already talked on the show about how Gemini is going to start to power Siri on the iPhone later this year, probably September with the iOS update. So now we got Google in two ways. They're hitting the mainstream desktop browser and they're going to be powering Siri with Gemini, but they're really pushing agentic and they're really pushing the ability to automate a lot of stuff. And
mhm.
so to me, this is the time where all the theoretical that we've been talking about is becoming reality. And we've always talked about humans being the bottleneck and the reason that things won't move as fast as we thought they would originally. But they're accelerating really quickly. And so I think we're now at the end of the beginning of how tourism was booked previously. And we're at the beginning of a new age where people are going to be letting machines do a lot of the decision making and research for them and coming back with curated. So I think this fundamentally changes a DMO's role, a marketer's role. So I'm going to throw it to you first, Adam, and hear what you have to say about this new twist in the tale of AI.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked a lot about how we've overestimated how quickly we think AI will completely flip the customer experience on its head and the travel experience on its head. And we've underestimated the impact that it's actually going to have in the long term. But as I look at this, one of the biggest barriers that we've had to whether or not AI is truly going to make a difference in the DMO space is consumer adoption. And convenience is the biggest factor in consumer adoption. And if you go back and look at when the iPhone came out, the phone came out first. Then they integrated music. Then they integrated other components of your experience. And now there's so many people that are married to Mac or married to Apple because of the technology connection between all of their different devices. And I think what you're seeing is Google taking the steps to do the exact same thing and to let convenience start to enter in so that people will adopt this technology faster. And I'm telling you, once convenience hits, the rate of change is just going to be incredible for how people are using it and how it affects the way DMOs are structured, the way different organizations are structured. And like you said, I think this is the beginning of a new era, and the rate of change is only going to increase. And we've talked a lot about how we've overestimated the timelines. I'm starting to feel like
Mhm.
maybe we didn't, because the rate that things are going to change are going to be a lot quicker now.
Yeah. Annie, you have a response to this? Does this scare you guys?
It's funny. I saw somebody post about this and over the like I think it was yesterday talking about this, and then there was another conversation that happened this morning around, preparing your websites for kind of all the agentic stuff that was going to come in and pull the information, and you wanted to be better than the OTAs, and so I don't know. The whole thing. Like I love where AI is what AI is allowing us to do, but it also feels like we're just drinking from a fire hose at this point. Like there's just so much coming at you from all directions. I got online this morning and it had 3 requests for meetings from AI companies that want to meet with me. They're not in this
Mhm.
business. They just want to have a conversation, but they've got the newest solution that's going to solve all my problems, but they don't even know what my problems are. So it just feels
Mhm.
like it's coming at me from all directions personally. So I don't know. I mean, time will tell where it takes us, but I do think, you're spot on, Adam, in terms of like if it makes things more convenient. I think as Americans, for sure, I speak for our sector. I think that we are creatures of wanting to have things done for us so we don't have to do them. So maybe,
Mhm.
that I don't know, that's where we're headed. I don't know that that's an answer or a staking a claim on a side of this, but
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Alex, what about you? Is
Ye-
this
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a stat at one point when I was chair of the board, and I don't think it exists anymore because things have changed so much. But at one point, we used to say, the average traveler looks at something like 15 different websites before they make a decision of where they're going, not just the destination, but the accommodations and everything else. And it's like, you know, that sounds so miserable to have to go to 15 different
Yeah.
websites. Like it's almost like we glorified the process of having to search online, but AI has been wonderful in some ways, but I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel like I have way more time now that I'm able to utilize AI. My time is just getting filled with other things. And
Agreed.
granted, able to be more efficient using certain AI tools, but it's not like I have all this time now that I don't know what to do with. But I
Can I
think
ask you a question on that, Alex?
yeah,
Just
yeah.
real quick. Have you used agentic AI yet?
No, but one of the companies that I work with, Boom, is based on an agentic AI framework. So I'm very familiar with what it
Yeah.
does as far as property management and within our tool. But no, I have not used it for my own personal use.
Can somebody
And the only
explain to
reason,
me what that is? Because that's where I
yes.
don't understand agentic AI versus general AI. So maybe
So,
that's will helpful.
Stuart, do you want me to start and then
Sure.
you can obviously
Go
tell them where
ahead.
I'm wrong? But
Yeah.
agentic AI is where you can actually assign something to an AI agent and it goes and does it. So, up to this point, we've used AI as a tool to make us personally more capable, right? I can write emails faster. I can put together a statement of work faster. I can build a presentation faster. I can do research faster. But all of that is still so I can complete the task in a better
Right.
way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can make assignments to AI agents, and
Yeah.
AI agents will go complete those tasks on your behalf, which I believe is the true like divide between AI making you busier and AI making you less busy. Because once you are no longer the bottleneck to complete the task, I think that's really going to change the paradigm within which you're using it. So,
Yeah.
anyway, Stuart,
Yeah.
I'm sure you have something to add to that from me, but
You,
what do you think?
you did pretty good for a layman, man. I'm impressed.
Ah,
So,
wow.
yeah, I mean, I think the best way folks understand it is if you give specific examples, right? And I think we're not quite there yet. Although there are some people doing this, I'm not ready to quite trust it. But you can almost create a virtual employee or virtual assistant, like that does the things that a real human would do for you. So it could be, hey, I need to go to Cleveland to Marcom. It already knows my preferences. Go book the travel for me. And it can just go look at flights, look at hotels, and actually fill out the forms. And in a lot of cases right now, it'll get all the way to the end, and then you just have to approve the purchase. But I think we're not too far from it actually being able to go all the way and just maybe coming back to you and saying, hey, this is the itinerary. Does this look good? Submit. So, but in your daily routine, I mean, one of the things we're doing at Visit Mobile Beach is looking at what are our work processes in asking AI to find efficiencies in it, right? So if I'm spending, say, 3 hours a day in my email inbox, there's a world in the very near future where that could be shrunk down to 30 minutes, right? Where AI is reading, filtering, sorting, and pre-responding or even all the way responding to some emails and then giving me the ones that it's not sure about. And it's based on my previous behavior. So letting the operation run for me instead of me actually having to give it specific instructions at every step, it can run multiple steps in a row. So this is where I think Adam's right. This is where things certain things won't be laborious for us anymore. But I think what I'm finding, and I agree with you ladies, is the more I'm doing with AI, the more ideas I'm having, the more I'm wanting to do, the more I'm seeing the potential, and the more I want to do. So
Yeah.
I don't feel like I have more time. I actually feel more stressed because I feel like I'm trying to get more done. And sometimes that's great because we can turn around designs quicker, we can turn around content quicker, we can turn around a lot of stuff quicker. But now we're just doing more volumes of it. So I
Mhm.
don't know
Don't
if
you
the
just feel
pace is
late all the
sustainable.
time too? Don't you just feel
Always,
late?
always behind the eight
All the
ball.
time. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
but I think as far as it pertains to travel, like I have no problem personally if I can use AI, agentic AI to find the best flights that meet my criteria or find, things like that, that that's not time I enjoy searching the web.
Hmm.
But if it's something like I want to go find the perfect house for a girls' getaway that Annie and I are planning, I'm going to want to look at that. I mean, I'd love the AI to
Hmm.
surface the best options for me, but to your point, Stuart, there has to be some that cut down that time, but then give it to me for the approval part of it. I think
Hmm.
that will be huge. And then, for travel brands, though, more specifically, if people are using whatever the AI tool is there, where does that take websites? And like, I mean, how are websites going to generally be found? I mean, we've heard from some of the OTAs that they're developing partnerships with some of these AI platforms. So
Hmm.
it's like, are they going to be the only results that are shown? And that's what I'm worried about.
That's the challenge, right? So if we go
Hmm.
from a world where people are looking at 30 or 15 websites to make a decision,
Hmm.
and we're looking at now, they're going to go to zero websites. They're just going to have the AI of choice bubble up information to them based on its searches.
Yeah.
Where, as marketers, as DMOs, or as a business that is trying to promote any kind of product, where is our relevance anymore? And so
Hmm.
the website, I think, right now we sort of look at it as the place people go. But I think increasingly we've got to look at it. It really is just an interface between our information and the consumer, right? That's what a website is. It's a way to shift information between those two cohorts. But in the future, we still need the information. We still need to push it out. But the website's not the place that's going to happen. It's going to happen within the agent, within whatever the AI of choice is. So we've just got to
Hmm.
think about, how do we disseminate that information? How do we make sure our information is front and center? We have the highest probability of getting found. But I think whereas 6 months ago, well, a year ago, I was thinking this was happening in 2 years. 6 months ago, I was thinking it was probably more like five. And now I'm sort of swinging back the other way and thinking it might be quicker than five. So
Yep.
I
it's
think so.
ever
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's a lot. It's stressful for sure.
Yeah. A
But
lot of
that's why people,
FOMO, it's like you always feel like, oh God, like I'm not doing that. Am I behind? But
yeah.
yeah, it's
Well, I can
stressful.
tell you there's like a 0.1% of people that I know that are really on top of this in a real meaningful way and doing some crazy stuff and playing with, like, malt stuff, and well, what now it's claw,
Open
um,
claw. Yeah.
open claw.
Hmm.
And but the vast majority of people are not. Even tech forward people, I hang out with a lot of nerds, and even the early adopters feel behind on this. So you're
Yeah.
certainly not alone. All right, well, let's jump into the topic, because I know Adam's got a hard stop at the top of the hour. But vacation rentals, or short-term rentals, they get called a lot of things, creates a whole lot of headaches in our space, because STR means both Smith Travel Research and short-term rentals, and I think people
Yeah.
get
Hmm.
confused. But when I think about short-term rentals or vacation rentals, I'm thinking about a couple of things. I'm thinking about, vacation homes, right? Standalone structures that have multiple units. In Myrtle Beach, I'm thinking like beach homes and things like that. But I'm also thinking uh, companies like one you used to work for, Alex, called Condo World, that own multiple units or multiple properties across different structures and different buildings across. So they might have individual condo units in a high rise, and then another one in another one. So I'm thinking both as like the actual product of vacation rental, but I'm also thinking about the ecosystem of the companies, the entities that rent out short-term rentals when I'm thinking about vacation rentals. How do you guys think about this? Because you're both very ingrained with BRMA and all kinds of stuff. So tell me how you think about vacation rentals.
Alex, I'll let you go first.
Well, number one, we are not Airbnb. I think the vacation rental industry, it's been around for a very, very long time, but within the last, half a decade or so post-COVID, with how much Airbnb has become such a household name, they've really become basically the Kleenex of our industry. And in that time, prior to that time, you had the companies, the Condo Worlds of the world, and the legacy companies that have been around 25, 35 years, that they built up these really strong brands that are well known within their markets. Their leadership it works with DMOs in a lot of cases. They've, built good businesses for their employees and their homeowners, and, they have those brands. But a lot of the companies that have come up within vacation rentals post-COVID have really given no no real effort or thought to brand. And I think a lot of them didn't realize, what Book Direct even was or why that's important. And because of that, the industry has kind of fallen to the wayside of, okay, well, let's just let Airbnb be the brand for everything that we do. And in the meantime, that's not the best situation for everybody because there's a lot of I mean, Airbnb is a great platform, but there is also there's some bad sides to it, and there's some preconditions of how people look at short-term rentals because of bad experiences that they've heard or had with an individual short-term rental host. That a host is very different than a company that has 200 units and staff and everything else. And I think as an industry, we've just really let Airbnb kind of just take the main stage, and that's something that now everybody's having to combat and fight with. But you look at Myrtle Beach. We obviously had a great relationship with the CVB and in Annie's market, vacation rentals are a very welcome part of the discussion. But when you go to other markets where they don't have that collaborative nature of this destination, the short-term rentals are not necessarily part of the picture. They're not invited or a part of the boards of directors or part of the leadership committees there. And it's creating a divide that those people, they don't even know that they have an opportunity to partner with the DMO. And the DMO is not making an effort necessarily to go after them because they're remembering the bad connotations of, oh, those people don't pay their taxes and they're just, causing trash issues and noise issues. And does that happen? Yes, but that's not the industry that we represent. So it's a complicated situation, I would say.
Yeah. And Annie, so do you think that the delineation that Alex just sort of laid out is professionally managed versus non-professionally managed, right? Is there specific things you look at to delineate between those two? Because I could be someone that creates my own vacation rental company and goes and gets 5 or 6 units and think I'm professional, but I could be causing all the problems that Alex is laying out, right? So how do you guys in your head canon say this is what I would define as a professional managed vacation rental organization?
Yeah, and I think that, that goes back to kind of like where I was going to say is like you've got the short-term rentals and you've got vacation rentals.
Hmm.
And short-term rentals are vacation rentals or short-term rentals, but short-term rentals aren't vacation rentals. And so there's kind of like there's that divide that was already created by this kind of urban secondary market outside of the traditional vacation rental markets where where our industry, where Alex and I come from, like the basis of the industry. And then post COVID, it boomed into like, well, everybody can have a short-term rental and anybody can do this. And there was no like source of truth for how do you go about doing this. And there are people that have 5 or 6 that'll say, well, I am professional. I pay my taxes. I have my licensing. I greet the guests. Like that's their idea of professional. So I think the term professional has gotten kind of hijacked, but depending on which side of the conversation that you're on. And I think all of this goes back to where can we as an industry provide somebody with a basic toolkit to start their business so that when they do decide whether they're going to just have one or they're going to, have 1,000, that they're all sort of required to have the same basic things in place. Safety mechanisms. They do have their permits, they're paying their taxes, they're, double checking that they're even zoned to be doing this. And I think that's where a lot of the stuff in these markets has become the problem is there was no zoning in place to say like, well, you couldn't rent the carriage house behind your house to, to somebody who was on vacation. So Panama City Beach had a lot of that going on where people were like, oh, well, I only winter there because I live in Canada or I live up north in the summer. I can rent my house out to, and, there's not actually a manager taking care of it, but they figured they could do it. So there was like kind of like people just fast and loose with rules that didn't really exist. And so I think we're trying to go back and play armchair quarterback to something that happened over the last 5 years and figure it out, whereas we just didn't have anything in place to start people off on the right path. And so for me, I don't know that you can say professional is 1 versus 10. I think as long as somebody has the right intent, they can be professional at 1. So I don't know if that really kind of answers the direction you were headed with this, but professionalism is kind of what you make of it at the market level with access to education and information and kind of how the person is actually acting with their rental, in my mind.
Yeah, so you're delineating with they offer certain benefits like safety and
Yeah.
on someone in the area to deal with the guest if there's challenges, things like that.
Yeah.
So can you, for our audience, because I think there's probably a lot of folks here, historically DMOs and vacation rental management companies in a lot of destinations don't really collaborate. So you sort of delineated between short-term rental and vacation rentals. Can you just be specific? So when you're talking about vacation rentals, what do you mean by that?
So vacation rentals, and Alex and I have had a lot of conversations over the years on the show about this, is vacation rentals are from those traditional vacation destinations. So you're talking
Okay.
Panama City Beach, Myrtle Beach, Park City, Utah, like the places that people have always gone for their week-long vacation. A
Right.
short-term rental is some place that people, maybe someone's passing through and they just want a rental, or they're going into an urban area where maybe Sunday to Thursday, that unit might be rented to somebody who's there for business, but on the weekend it's somebody
Hmm.
who's going to a Taylor Swift concert or a football game or what have you. So STR kind of sits more in the urban sector
Hmm.
in kind of how I've always looked at it. And then you've got vacation rentals is in a traditional vacation destination.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay, that makes sense. And then why do you guys think that, I think your thesis when we were talking about what subject is you felt like in a lot of destinations, vacation rentals and DMOs are not really working together as collaboratively as they could. Do you guys have any sort of hypothesis of why that is? Like from your experience, why you think vacation rentals, DMOs are often not sitting down at the same table?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to the makeup of inventory in that destination, and I'm thinking of a few in Virginia and kind of north of where we are. That happens a lot. That there's a big conglomerate of the chain hotels or even the local hotels, but they really control the narrative as far as tourism is considered. And I think if anything, it's been more organized over the years. That when the DMOs need to find out what's going on in the market or when they put together advertising programs or whatever it is, it's easier to go to the entity that that they're doing conferences, they've got sports tourism coming to their properties. I mean, like they know they've got a flow there versus with the short-term vacation rentals. If there's not companies in that market that represent a large portion of inventory, it's a lot harder to get in front of those people and even build some sort of a package that makes sense specifically for them. So I think that's part of it. But I mean, you look at some markets, I mean, are like the ones Annie mentioned, are probably 30 to 50% of their revenue that's coming in is tax income is short-term rentals. So I mean, like it's
Right.
the impact of short-term rentals is massive on tourism and always has been, but it's only continuing to increase. I think it's just more about finding a way to bring people to the table to work together. And one other point I wanted to make too, that Annie was talking about on the safety thing, we hear this all the time that when regulation is coming down in a certain area, that property managers that we know, their companies are going to these town council meetings and they're doing a presentation of all the things that they do to comply with safety, with trash, with noise. I mean, the amount of vendors and technology that have come into our space is unbelievable and way more than what's happened on the hotel side. I think we've actually gotten more sophisticated in a lot
Yeah.
of ways because we had to. But in a lot of cases, when they go to these meetings, the city council and the powers that be had no idea all the steps and all the hoops that we have to go through just to get people to check in. I mean, to check that they're not a sex offender, to double check their identification, to make sure the property that there's not noise after 9 p.m. and it's monitoring the decibels. I mean, there's a vendor for everything in our industry
It's
to the
true.
point that it's kind of crazy. But we're trying to address the problem, but I don't know that it's really that's being exposed in the destinations of like, God, these people are working really hard. We should probably give them some love here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can
Adam,
I
you have
jump
some
in and ask a
questions?
question?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I want to know, let's pretend in a perfect world, right? STRs and DMOs were just working as well together as they possibly could. What does that perfect world look like? What does that perfect dynamic look like in your minds?
That's a good question. I don't know that there's ever a perfect scenario because I think it does vary by market. And I think, the challenge comes for DMOs is that they listen to the person that writes the biggest check, who is the biggest
Hmm.
contributor to the bed tax or whatever fee is associated with it. So a lot of times, especially in urban areas, the hotel groups are going to have a lot more power. But I think it's understanding that that vacation short-term rentals are complementary to the hotel, the hotel inventory, and that, for markets like Panama City Beach and Myrtle Beach are great examples of this. The amount of sports tourism that has been able to be harnessed into a market because of vacation and short-term rentals, because they can house multiple teams, it's cost effective. That has enabled these markets to grow, which has enabled them to build these sports parks, been able to attract, restaurants, been able to pave new roads. I mean, all the things that has done. Vacation rentals and short-term rentals have been very, very integral to that. Even though they might only generate 30% of the revenue, they're very, very important to that bigger conversation. And I think that, to Alex's point, the short-term rental sector has done a bad job in sort of advocating for themselves within their markets. But I think that it's because it's just so fragmented from market to market. There's no like one unified voice, whereas the hotel group has the American Hotel Lobby Association. You have your brands, that are advocating. You have things out there in the space that are talking about all the things that are being done. There's no one entity that can do that at scale for our industry. So it just becomes at these city council meetings, it becomes I always call them the againers, the people that show up at these meetings and they got to have some issue again to complain about to fill up their time. And if you ask 9 out of 10 of them, the reason that they moved to that destination was because they were a tourist too. So they benefited both sides of it. And now all of a sudden it's like the not in my backyard. I don't want to deal with this. But everything that they're getting is a direct result of the tourism that's being brought in. So I don't know that there's a perfect scenario other than just keeping lines of communication open and not assuming things about people.
And I appreciate that. Maybe I'll throw this to you, Alex. Let's just talk value then. And I think Annie, you articulated very well from a value perspective what short-term rentals bring to a community, especially like Myrtle Beach, Panama City Beach. What value should short-term rentals, both professional organizations and individuals, receive from their DMO in that ideal scenario?
I mean, adequate positioning in the marketing that those options do exist. I think if you look probably this is where it gets a little bit grayer, because if you are looking at marketing that Visit Myrtle Beach or Visit Panama City Beach does, if they're showing pictures of a condo, that could be an on-site property hotel resort, or it could be a vacation rental managed by an off-site, company. But in a lot of cases, if there are like homes, standalone homes that are vacation rentals, showing that in the marketing. And I think the main thing is, when people travel, they are going to pick accommodations that are appropriate for that trip and who they're traveling with. And that can vary. I mean, if it's my husband and I traveling, typically we like to stay in a hotel. So we've got a restaurant there and a bar and somebody at the front desk if we need anything. But if Annie and I are doing a girls trip, we're going to stay in a vacation rental or short-term rental because we've got more space. So the reasons that people come to these destinations and who they're traveling with is important, but and for the DMO side, I mean, you look at sports tourism, that's a huge driver for all of us. And that really makes sense for short-term rentals, but they are typically not really promoted on that side. I think that hotels and resorts are more, they're set up better as far as their processes and how they can do rack rate and different things as far as how they work with these event organizers, that short-term rentals really are not as familiar on that side. So I think if anything, it could be more of an educational thing on both sides. But how do we keep the playing field open so that it is fair on both sides? Because if a destination is losing a sports conference or a sport event or a conference because the people that are deciding between destinations don't see that type of inventory, that's a loss for the entire destination. And that's something that you don't necessarily know is happening.
Yeah, I agree. I think representation is certainly one of the key things. We should represent that type of inventory. I think the other, Adam, is advocacy. I think working together on advocacy that makes sense for the community. I think with the onset of folks like Airbnb and VRBO, it's fair to say that it's created some challenges, right? There are some minority of bad actors that create problems, either don't remit taxes or they don't hold standards with their guests or do the types of checks and safety. And so working collaboratively collaboratively as a DMO and the vacation rental industry in your area to go to the legislature and make sure that there's common sense rules applied, that there's a fair playing field, like Alex said, between hotels, vacation rentals, and especially professionally managed and in the non-professionally managed, because it is the minority of bad actors that will do things to try to skirt the rules. They might not get a
Yep.
business license, they might not remit taxes, and so working collaboratively together to make sure that doesn't happen. Because at the end of the day, part of that is to make sure that all the money that should be coming back to the community is, but part of it all is also visitor safety and visitor experience. And we want to make sure that people that come here have a great time and want to come back. And if they're staying in a substandard property or they're not having a good time because of something that the manager is not doing, then we want to be a part of that solution along with the vacation rentals.
Yep.
Am I also hearing that more access to the marketing team from short-term rental organizations, meaning those organizations need more access to the DMO marketing team so they can be featured in promotion, so that they can be included in inventory and all that kind of stuff? Is that part of what you're advocating for here?
Yeah, and I almost
Yeah.
think it would be advantageous to DMOs to have like a committee for short-term rentals, within their organization, or that, it's a smaller group that gets together, because if you have to start somewhere, and it's like if you kind of get a group together to start understanding what's going on and what they're looking for, I mean, the short-term rentals, we're promoting the destination as well. I mean, like we're trying to get people to come and stay with us and then go out to eat and, benefit the wider destination there. But I think just opening those lines of communication for most DMOs would be pretty wise.
Yeah,
Agree
I
with
agree.
that.
Yeah, we should look at all our lodging mix. I think, one of the secret sources that Model Beach has, and I don't think people sort of realize this, is the diversity of accommodations that we have, right? Because we have about 150,000 hotel room equivalents, but it's broken down between hotels, condotels, beach homes, campgrounds. Like it's a lot of different types of configurations. So depending on when you're traveling and who you're traveling with, you can find something that works for you. A lot of people like Alex and her husband that want to stay in a hotel that has on-site amenities, but we have vacation homes that are like they can sleep 30 or 50 or 60 people.
Yeah.
And so for a
Yeah.
whole team to travel together and stay in that kind of environment is a great experience, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
think us telling that story, we could do a better job of telling that story of you have a choice, but the balance is how do you do that without overwhelming the consumer, because they're going to get paralysis through analysis if you try to throw everything at them at once. So trying to ask individual questions to the consumer to let them self-filter or self-select is what we try to do. We could probably do a better job.
Yeah, and I think from the education standpoint of the DMO to those short-term rental host companies, whatever the case may be, just to help them understand, sports tourism just comes to mind, because I remember when I was at Condo World, we would participate in these proposals. I don't think that we won officially many of them because we weren't really sure. Our answers didn't really fit into the questions that were requested of these organizers that were sending these in. But I think it goes both ways, that the DMO should be informing the event organizers of, okay, you can't just be saying how many two-bedroom ocean view suites do you have? I mean, like it's a different type of a product that you can consolidate, people into one accommodation. But just education on both sides of like how these entities work and what the best way is to structure things. Which again, I think that could come from some sort of a committee within your local market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it also comes from representation on the board, right? We always try to have at least one. And I think at peak, we've had 3 or 4 folks that represent that industry on our board that, and we try to do that across every sector, right? Because we got a lot of bosses to serve, so we try to be like attractions and retail and hotel. And so it's tough, but I think if we're not talking with each other, if the vacation rental, cohort and the DMOs aren't talking together, then I think that's when problems arise, right? There's going to be frustrations on both sides and misunderstandings on both sides. And at the end of the day, we're on the same team, right? We want more people to come to our destination. We want more people to have a great time. We want more people to find the right fit of lodging for their specific trip. And maybe it's, hey, I'm coming with a sports team this week and I want to stay in a vacation rental, but I'm coming again with my wife in 6 months for a romantic getaway and I want to stay in a luxury hotel. So I don't think we should necessarily pigeonhole people, and that's why we need to be a little, probably as DMOs, a little fairer in terms of our representation of the lodging mix.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why I've always wondered why DMOs weren't more inclusive with their inventory because, again, with the way hotel prices are, if you've got more than one child and you need to get two rooms, a lot of times it's like
Hmm.
you're gonna you just the vacation or the trip becomes unaffordable. And you
Mm-hmm.
may opt to not bring the whole family because of that,
Yeah,
and then
just not come at all.
they're not spending the money in the restaurants and doing instead of buying 4 tickets to the aquarium, it's just 2 tickets. So like
Hmm.
there's a bigger thing at play, a bigger conversation that impacts more than just like the lodging portion of the tax. And I think that it's like once you start to understand, and again, I mean, I think that that's one of the things that VRMA is trying to do a better job at, is like collecting data and like delivering that data so that there is reporting that can be done to show economic impact on various areas. So there's a lot of studies that get funded through the association, so people don't have a hearsay about what's actually going on and allow one bad apple to spoil the whole bunch, as it were. So yeah, I mean, I think
Hmm.
that it's just overall there's so much more that we can accomplish together if everybody has a seat at the table. And like Alex and I, Alex says it all the time. It's like, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and too many people are allowing themselves to be on the menu and not getting their own chair and pulling up to the table. So you need to
Hmm.
encourage people to make their voice heard. And even if they can't be heard, just show up. So at least after a while, people start to see and know that you're present and want to be part of the solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys had one sort of wish or one message, obviously the best and the brightest people in the DMO world listen to this show, right? So because I and Destiny's amazing. So, for a lot of them, they probably haven't considered vacation rentals before as a sort of core piece of their focus or their board makeup. What would your message to them be right now?
Can I ask it a different way?
Sure.
Okay. Because
There are no rules in this podcast.
okay, good. Yeah, that's like our show too. I would actually like to flip the script and ask you guys, like from your perspective, like why do you think that this is happening? I mean, like, is it what we are thinking that it's, there's political reasons in it of the hotel groups? Is it not an easy enough path to identify how to get in touch with these vacation
Yeah.
rental hosts if it's not a conglomerate of companies? Is it because there's data all over the place and you'd have to do multiple APIs like to be able to really see what's going on? Like, what do you think is the reason?
Well, I can. This is my opinion. Focus group of one. I think Myrtle Beach and Panama City Beach are different markets in terms of vacation rentals, right? We've had these professionally managed organizations for decades, and it's not a new phenomenon. I think for a lot of DMOs, as you mentioned, vacation rentals are synonymous with things like Airbnb and VRBO, and they really
Mhm.
weren't on the radar. They didn't have the critical mass of volume until really the pandemic and after, and
Mhm.
so really a little bit before, but really post pandemic. And so I think for a lot of DMOs right now, I wouldn't say it's because hotels are spending all the money and therefore there's some conspiracy to keep vacation rentals out. I don't think it's that. I think they do pay attention to hotels because hotels are carrying the freight, but I don't think it goes beyond that to and therefore dot dot dot. I think it's literally vacation rentals are viewed as a problem in a lot of destinations, right? Because they see this Airbnb problem that's created challenges with workforce, right? With tax collection, like you can go on with the problems that it's creating, the gentrification of historic areas. Like there's all kinds of issues, and there are bad actors in the vacation rental space. So
Sure.
I think it's othered the industry for a lot of
Hmm.
destinations where they see it as a problem, not a part of their team. And
Yeah.
so I think the onus is on the good actors and maybe a coalition of vacation rentals to come together. I don't see the DMOs being proactive on this. I really think it's going to
Mhm.
have to come from the other side. I
I
think the
I
agree.
agree.
vacation rentals are going to
Yeah.
have to get together and say, hey, we're going to form our own association, maybe
Yeah.
formally or informally. We're going to collectively articulate what our value proposition is and what value we provide to the DMO and to the community. And then we're going to go to the DMO and ask for not just the ability to collaborate, but representation on the board and in their marketing and other stuff. But it's going to take time. It's going to take an investment of time and money. But I think there has to be more awareness of the positive side, not just the negative and the friction side.
Yeah.
And then I think you can the vacation rentals can go to the DMO and say, hey, you have a problem. We have a problem as a community with bad actors, with Airbnbs. Here are some thoughts, here are some solutions. We want to work together with you to go to our legislature to come up with sensible policy that's going to try to eliminate some of these negative impacts. That's my perspective.
Yeah, and I think I would just add that I think STRs are too easy to categorize under lodging, and most destinations feel like they're already solving the lodging category through the work that they're doing. So I think it's that simple. And then I think the lack of organization, but like you've got the lodging association, which speaks for the lodging industry in a destination. And then you've got 27 different short-term rental companies who would like to be heard. Well, it's much easier to just listen to the singular lodging association in that scenario. And I'm not accusing DMOs of being complacent or anything like that, because that's not the point. The point is that who do you go to? If I want to get more involved with short-term rentals and even feature some of them in my campaign, I probably have to do research on who all the short-term rentals are in my destination and decide which one fits my campaign the best. And that's not terribly convenient for most destination marketers out there. To be honest with you, what I'm hearing is I think the equivalent of the National Lodging Association for short-term rentals needs to be created. And I think the two people best equipped to create that organization are the guests on our podcast
Oh,
today.
geez.
No, you just
Perfect.
opened a can of worms there, didn't you?
Well, I, in all seriousness, like I don't know how it happens unless there's some formal organization and even lobbying on the behalf of the short-term rental industry, because you're so easy to miscategorize that it's going to be very difficult in every destination for that to be a major part of the priority list. Because like Stuart said, destinations already have a ton of bosses. And the harsh reality is, if you're not a boss that has a loud enough voice, which also, you can hear the money ringing when I say a loud enough voice, it's going to be very difficult to be prioritized in the way you desire. And unless somebody helps everybody band together and change that, I think it's going to be very difficult to do.
And we've talked about this for years, the role of VRMA, which is our National Trade Association, how VRMA can work more closely with Destinations International. And Annie's a board member now. I was a board member a couple of years ago. And I think there are conversations, and I think there's a relationship there. But I think there's probably more of an opportunity that if we could really focus on that, I think could be excellent for everybody involved.
Are they educating
there's a lot,
DMOs?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations happening at VRMA now, and has been like with membership. I've always been on membership committee the last 2 years, and it's like, how do we get to the DMOs to help them be kind of boots on the ground advocates for the associations for us to enter these markets? And so we could come in and say, like, you can just introduce us to the people, we'll provide the education. I think the larger challenge is there's so much of the industry at large, like 85-90% of it falls in managers that have less than 20 units. So if you think about that, you're talking 1 million plus pieces of inventory in the US that fall to hundreds of thousands of people that you're trying to get in front of. And so the association has struggled with that. And so there's a movement to get to those, to that segment of the industry, so they know that we're available as the association. Because you're right, until there's sort of like a unified voice that can kind of speak on behalf of, to go to these DMOs with power and say, we represent, like the hotel lodging does. They can go in and we represent X amount of, hotel rooms within all, the entire U.S. If we go in and say we represent 1 million pieces of inventory in the U.S., all of a sudden that has power and people are going to listen. But, to your point about there's so much politics at play. regardless of how you want to, dice this, it's politics. It's always going to be who's got the loudest voice, which yes, the ka-ching always goes behind the loudest voice. But there, people, the DMOs, I think a lot of times they want to go path of least resistance. What's working? Like, and I'm not accusing anyone of doing it, but I do
100%.
think that there's, they don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. You want everybody to get along. And if a DMO was on the Enneagram, DMO would be number 9. You just want everybody to get along. You don't want any fighting, and you're not going to
Yeah.
externalize anything. But I think that that's part of it. There's just so many things that have to be kept in balance on any given day. But until we as a group stand up and have a stronger voice, which, again, Burma's trying to do that. We're getting there. We're getting better. I think we've made a lot of strides, but we've got a long way to go.
Yeah, and I would say you're right about there's inertia in our industry. We tend to gravitate to the status quo. We don't take risks, and so I think it's the onus is probably on VRMA and the industry at large to coalesce, bring together some coherent requests. Like what is it that the vacation rentals in a given destination need from the DMO or want from the DMO, and how can they mutually benefit each other? But I think you've also got to articulate the value you already possess and show, because power can come in a lot of ways. Yes, it's money, right? But it's also influence. And so the vacation rentals, if they coalesce, are going to gain more influence. You've got to have relationships with city council and county council and folks like that. So
Yep.
yeah, you guys have some homework to do. I guess
Yeah,
that's our
I guess so.
conclusion to that.
Well,
We'll
now
report
that we have
back.
so much time on our hands because we utilize AI for everything,
yeah.
we need another project. So I'm glad that
need to
you
create an
nominated
agent.
us.
You create an agent to go create a new coalition of vacation rentals. That'd be
Yeah,
great.
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Adam, I know you had a hard stop at the top of the hour,
Yeah.
so we're gonna wrap it up here. Alex, Annie, any final thoughts or any final messages? And this is your chance to shamelessly plug the podcast. I'll throw it to you first, Alex.
Yeah, if you want to get in touch with us, if you want to learn more about vacation rentals, we dive into a lot of different topics across travel, just in general, and tourism. But the podcast is alexandanniepodcast.com. You can just search for Alex and Annie on any podcast network or YouTube. We'd love to have you come listen.
Awesome. And Annie.
I don't have anything other than thanks so much for having us. We appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the banter between you and Adam. And I'm going to work on some of my jokes so I'm prepared for this situation better next time. So I'll have some zingers for both of you.
I don't know. I don't know if you have it in you to be as mean to
I
Alex
definitely
as
don't.
Stuart
I,
is to me.
I definitely
That is
yeah,
not Annie's Enneagram at
definitely
all.
Yeah.
does not. But I will
Your
work on.
vibe is a little different than ours.
I'll
for
find
sure.
some
You're a
mom
little-
jokes. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah.
We love good
Yeah.
mom jokes.
And thank you for having us, guys.
Yeah.
This was great. We always love riffing with y'all.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. We'd love to have you back anytime. But
Yeah.
and go check out that podcast, Alex and Annie podcast. It's really good. And there is, I mean, I really enjoyed the episode we were on
Me
just a
too.
few
It was
weeks
fun.
ago.
Yeah.
So go
It
check
was
that out.
fun.
Yeah.
Adam, if folks want to reach you, where can they do that?
Adam at thebrandrevolt.com. You can find me on LinkedIn or, of course, on Tourism IQ.
Great. And you can reach me at stuart.butler@visitmodelbeach.com or on LinkedIn. And until next time, this has been Destination Discourse.
Thanks, everybody.